Welcome back. The final point I want to make in lecture 2 on exploring data is how to export tables into various formats from Stata. Now in this short video I show you how to do this using code. We have done it already, simply copy pasting in a previous lecture. But using code, it's actually quite easy to do. It only takes a few lines of code, and the benefit is whenever you rerun your do file, it updates all the tables in your preferred format. So you can do it, for instance, in Word or in Excel or maybe in LaTeX. So that's quite useful, isn't it? If you want to see some more stuff about LaTeX and how you integrate Stata in LaTeX, just leave a comment below. I'm happy to explore that a bit further. I'm a big fan of LaTeX. It's much better than Word. Good, let's get started. The first thing we need is we have to check whether these commands, which you find on the slide, are actually installed in your version of Stata. So that's the esttab command and the estpost command. The easiest thing to check is simply try to run it and see what happens. Yeah, I already tried before. In my case, it's all installed, it's all running. Let me just clear that. So we just go to the help function, start a command, and type in these commands and see what happens. So I try estpost, and in my case, I get immediately the help function. In your case, if you don't see that, you have to install it. Yeah, so you go back to help, you go for search, and you just type out whatever you're looking for. In our case, the estpost command, and it will show you different places to install it. Yeah, so for instance, here the first one would look promising. And if you don't have it already installed, I have it installed, you can just click on this and install it. And then it should run as well. Yeah. Good. So that's all you need to do. You just have to make sure it's installed. You have all dependencies as well installed. Once that is done, you should be able to see the help function. When you look at the help function, there are many different options you can explore. I won't go into all the details, so this is up to you to explore that. So I will focus on a standard descriptive statistics table, which I use a lot in my academic papers or reports. This works with the summarize command, which we have done in the previous lecture. I actually show this now with the tabstat command, which is a bit similar, but you can kind of fine-tune a bit more what you actually want to show. Good, let's get started and let's do some fancy tables. No, let's do some tables if I can type. Okay. Just make a bit of space, and we start by the estpost command. I do a tabstat, and actually I want to run the tabstat maybe first before I do it inside the command. It's basically just taking the result into a so-called eReturn environment, and then I can export that. So for instance, if I want to look at income, I want to look at family size as we defined before. So we are back in our lecture 2 Stata do file. Then I want to look at certain statistics. So I use in the options, which are introduced with a comma, S, and then in brackets N for number of observations. And I might use a mean and I do a standard deviation. Again, you have to check the tabstat command, exactly how the syntax looks like. Of course, if you do it for 20 years, like in my case, you know by now. I just execute that. So that gives you a little table for income and size, and then you have the different statistics. As you can see, the statistics now are in rows. Now, this is fine, and that's okay. But usually in published work, we prefer to have the statistics in columns. So that's usually what we prefer. So I will move the statistics into the columns to make sure that's in a format that is more standard for academic output, but also for say a consulting report. Okay, good. So that's the tabset command. So what I'll do is I just copy paste that in here for my estpost command, and then I modify this a little bit further using the option columns, and I want to have now statistics here. So here we go, and that should basically do it. It should make sure that we basically transpose this table. So after that, so after you save your descriptive statistics in this so-called e-return environment, we can now export that using esttab, and I just use dots, which basically refers to whatever is currently in memory, and then I specify using, so that's then the location where I want this to have. I specify a table name. I have, say, I just call this now my table. Then I use the extension RTF, which gives you something you can work in Word. So that's quite useful if you want to write in Word. And then you can do a little bit more in terms of style. If you use the cells option, you can just have different names for the statistics. For instance, you might like to call observations the count, for instance. The mean, you want to have this also nicely written out. You want to maybe have a specific format for the mean, which is also again very common. So FMT refers to format, and then in another set of brackets you go %9.2f. So that basically is a so-called fixed format. It would display 2 decimal places, which is quite standard. So either it's 2, sometimes it's 3. So we have done now the mean. We have also here the standard deviation. So we could do the same for the standard deviation. So SD. Most likely I forgot one of these brackets. It's very easy. And I close that. So that are the cells specified, and then I just add a few more things to make it look a little bit more pretty. No ops doesn't display the observations. We already have a count, and then we can specify a title. So very often in this case I might just call this descriptive statistics or summary statistics, something like this. Yeah, so it's up to you. Let's do summary statistics or descriptive statistics, or overview of sample. Compress looks nicer. Replace is needed if you want to run this several times, which I do all the time. And no gap removes any gaps in between. If this gets a bit too long in terms of writing, you can just break this using these 3 backslashes, and we are basically done. So that looks good. Let's give it a try if it works. So we just run the whole thing maybe one more time. So it's just running the whole do file. So we have done the transformation of the previous one. Okay. Oh yeah, of course we have somewhere is something unbalanced, which is always beautiful. So we have to go back in here, make sure. Okay, there one is missing. To close that, this looks otherwise fine. So it's always nice to check whether I have to go to Specsaver. Here we go, we run this one more time, and that's it. That's pretty good. Now you can already actually see here highlighted the link to your table, but it will be also in your active folder as well. So you can just click on this, and that would be your table. So we have count, we have mean, we have standard deviation, of course. Now this is very simple at the moment, but if you add more and more variables, more and more different statistics, it's really nice to have. So you don't have to copy paste, you know, by marking this, right click, copy as HTML. That also works. We have done this before, but that's actually an easier way to get your tables into Word, and then you can just place it wherever you want in your document. And the beauty is, if you have it coded in your do file, you can just replicate this again and again. So if you update your file, if you change your variable definitions, you update your models, it updates all the tables for you. You don't have to do it yourself, which is great. Okay, I see you in the next one.